Well, hey, Accelerated Geography freshmen, I'm Mr. Abajian here. This lesson today is on global economics, one of the most important parts that you're going to get this entire class year as we set the foundation for what we're going to be covering here. And so this video is going to work like this. Right now in front of you, you've got your notebooks open and you've got a blank page and you've titled it Global Economics. In fact, it's set up in Cornell format as I'm talking right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be giving you an overview and then talking you through these notes as we pause it and you write and we do a few activities with it. And so for now, I want you to take a look at the map that's in front of you here. We've got Mongolia and we've got Japan. And a very easy question I ask students all the time is this, is from the map that you're looking at here, Japan and Mongolia, could you tell which country is rich and which one is poor? Now, taking a look at the map itself, maybe some of you would say something like this. Well, Japan here has access to ocean, so maybe it can trade, but it can't grow anymore because it's an island. Or I look at Mongolia and it's what we call landlocked. It's all surrounded by land, but there's no access to water to trade. In fact, they're up against Russia and China. So maybe they're poor. But to be honest with you, it's a little hard to tell because I can't tell on the size. Just because Mongolia is big doesn't mean it's rich, and just because Japan is smaller doesn't mean it's poor. We have to be able to take a look at a few things. So take a look at this picture I have of Mongolia that's here. This picture is from a series of photos taken called Material World. And what they've asked is average families in these countries to take everything they have in their home and put it out there for you. And so that in Mongolia here, they live in what we call a yurt. And so it's great for regulating temperature, that when it becomes too hot, you open it up, kind of cool it down, and during the wintertime, it actually holds in that heat. But this is everything that people typically in Mongolia own. Compare that, by the way, to what you see with this picture here in Japan. This is all the things that they own that are here. And you'll notice between the car they've got, the clothes, the toys, the technology, you can probably tell from now which one's rich and which one's poor. If I'm taking a look at Mongolia here, I'm going to probably say they're poorer compared to the Japanese family, which might be a lot richer because of the amount of stuff they own. But here's the problem. Taking a look at a map can't necessarily give us that information. Taking a look at these pictures can, but we don't have a picture like this for every single country. So today, what you're going to be taking a look at are a series of notes to be able to help you identify which countries are rich or developed and which countries are poor and developing. And so you're going to be going through these notes today in class, and we're going to be doing some work with it to give you a hand to be able to understand which countries are rich and which ones are poor. At this point right now, I'm going to ask to pause this video and for the teacher or sub that's in the classroom to go through part 1 of the global economic notes for you to be able to get down. And so you're looking at these 2/3 slides to copy down. For each slide that you copy down, make sure that you get it and then put a picture in the left-hand margin to represent it. Pause this video now, take the time to do that, and then when you finish it as a class, push play again, and I'll be ready to join you. So you have gotten a chance to go through these, and these economic activities, let me talk about it very briefly here. We're talking about globalization on an economic level at its finest. For example, if I'm talking about primary industries right here, we're talking about the type of jobs people have to make a living. They're taking natural resources and raw materials from the earth, like farming, mining, and forestry. They're not doing anything, they're just finding these things. It's the level 2 or the secondary industries that take these materials and they make something with it. That's your manufacturing. So if I'm using the example of a tree, I've taken that lumber and now I've made a chair, maybe a rocking chair with it. And so these are your bakers, your furniture factories, your steel mills. They've taken something and they've made something with it. Now, if you're going down the line a little bit more advanced, we get into our tertiary industries, where it's services, where somebody's providing a service of being able to sell these products to you, to offer their services. So when we talk about something like that, taking the tree example here, primary means we find it, secondary means we make something with it, and tertiary means that we're actually doing something with it. Somebody like a worker at Walmart is selling that rocking chair. Well, then what do we get up to the highest level type of jobs? We call that quaternary industries. These guys process information. They're your managers, your researchers, your administrators. So you'd be like a manager over at Walmart with what they end up doing. Now, this whole process of these four industries are globalization at its finest. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is this. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of these industries, and I'm going to ask you to hold up your fingers there in class. 1 if it's primary, 2 if it's secondary, 3 if it's tertiary, and 4 if it's quaternary. So let's do one. If I told you somebody who takes crops from a field, like apples, and makes it into an apple pie. Right now, can you hold up your fingers? 1 for primary, 2 for secondary, 3 for tertiary, 4 for quaternary. Hold up those fingers. If you're holding up finger number 2, or 2 fingers, you're correct with secondary industries. Awesome. That means somebody that's taking something and actually baked something or made something with it. If I told you somebody who drives a bus, like you come to school early in the morning, can you hold up 1 finger for primary, 2 for secondary, 3 for tertiary, 4 for quaternary, and take a look at those notes. Hold it up high. If you're holding up 3 fingers, you're correct. Tertiary is those that end up working and giving you a service. So they're providing transportation to you, a service that you would be using. If I said your principal of your school, using another school example, hold up your number of fingers. And I know for some of you, you're like, this is weird. I'm doing this to a video's voice. Just go with it. Just go with it. Hold them up high. Principal of the school. If you're holding up 4 fingers, quaternary, you're correct. That's our researchers, managers, administrators that are here. They're the ones that oversee it. If I were to say a teacher, that would be much more tertiary industries because they're providing you a service, which is education. Now taking a look up here, what if I told you somebody who picks cotton out of a field? Somebody who picks cotton out of a field. Hold up your fingers. 1 primary, 2 secondary, 3 tertiary, 4 quaternary. If you're holding up 1 finger, primary, you're correct. Because those are the people that just find and use those natural resources, but they're not making anything with it yet. Now I'll tell you this. Countries that are usually poor have a ton of primary and secondary industries. And those that usually are a lot richer work their way up to the tertiary and quaternary industries. Many of you coming out of these accelerated classes are probably going to end up, or your parents probably end up in jobs like C and D here, which pay a lot more money. Now, this next part that I'm going to want you to go through is for your second part is to give me some economic indicators. These are if I'm going to the doctor, I need a checkup, right, to know how I'm doing. Do I have a cough? Do I have a runny nose? Am I achy? Do I run a fever? That usually tells me how sick and poor, or how sick and healthy I am, depending on one of the two. Economic indicators tell me how rich or poor a country is, and so these are some vocabulary terms you're going to get down. And so I'm going to ask as you copy them down, make sure on the left-hand side here, you end up putting in a picture for each. And so you're going to go through this slide and this slide with the sub or the teacher. You can pause this video now. All right, everybody. Let me talk very quickly through some of these economic indicators. Gross national product means things that are produced, goods and services, aka jobs here, are produced by a country in a year. That would mean if Nike Shoes decides they want to put factories outside of the United States, as long as it is by an American company, that would count for a GNP. So it doesn't matter where that factory is. It's a huge number that's added up to tell us how much goods and job salaries we produce in a year. Now that's by a country. The one that we're going to use a ton is GDP, or gross domestic product, meaning the total value of goods and services produced in a country. A lot of the times we refer to this as per capita or per person. So let's take Honda Cars, a foreign company who produces automobiles in the U.S. That would count towards this number, which is all of the goods and the job salaries that we have here all combined into one number. I like this one a lot more, and we're going to use this one a lot more because it tells us how healthy our economy is, but it also tells us what companies and what companies produce what, and it tells us whatever is in the United States, that's the number it has. Now, see, industrialization, that's where we get factories and machines. We go from handmade items to machine-made goods. As we saw, countries that can industrialize or can make products are usually much richer than ones that can't. If I'm going here, literacy rate is just the ability to read and write. And so this tells us how many people in America or South Africa can read and write. Infrastructure are the buildings that we have, the roads that we have, the trains, the truck, the ships that we have. It's all of our communication that we have. Globalization is huge with countries that have huge infrastructures to be able to use. And telecommunications, this is simple. A lot of you can probably hold up your phone right now. Hopefully you're not text messaging in class, but you've got your cell phones, and that's a means of communication. Countries that usually have a number of means to communicate are a lot richer that are here. So the next part that I'm going to want you to go through as you've gone through these definitions is I'm going to ask you right below this to draw a T-chart. And on this T-chart, I'm going to ask you to give me one side developing countries and the other side developed countries, and draw a line all the way down the rest of your page. Now, if you've gone on to the back of your notebook page, totally fine. But draw this and then copy this down for me. As I'm talking, this would be important to know. A developing country means they have a lower number and variety of economic activities, meaning they stick in the primary industries here. They don't have a variety of different types of jobs. We usually call poor countries developing. So from here on out, you're going to hear me reference them as developing countries. Whereas on the right, those that have higher number, the tertiary, the quaternary industries, and a variety of economic activities, those are considered to be rich. We call them developed, so get used to this. After you've copied this down, and the sub or the teacher will give you a chance to be able to do this, what you're going to do is you are going to go and take each one of these characteristics, and you're going to end up putting them down in your T-chart that's here. Now, if I'm writing a T-chart that's here, for developed countries, I would look at this and it says high per capita GDP. And you already saw I revealed the answer. But that is a developed country. And so on the right-hand side, I'm going to write higher per capita GDP. Now what you're going to do is you're going to fill in, as you go through, and the sub or the teacher puts this out here, you're going to fill in each one of these parts that's here. The sub or the teacher will reveal afterwards which ones you have, and then I'll go through talking very briefly about the rest of them. But go ahead and fill this in, pause this video for me, get a chance to copy this down, fill it in with this part. The sub or the teacher will reveal the answers afterwards, and then we'll add on a few others. All right, everybody, so you've had a chance at this point now with that pause that you've had a chance to see some of your answers that are up here. So bravo. Now you've added those to your chart, which means you can add the rest of these bad boys. For developing countries also have what we call subsistence farming. You don't need to write this yet. I want you to write this once I'm done talking. But subsistence farming means farming enough to feed your family. Most people live in rural areas of the country. Terrible health care, and usually GDP per capita is about less than $1,000. Whereas developed countries, most live in cities, they're urbanized, international trade, great health care, and GDP on average is about $18,000. Again, these are ones you're going to need to add to your chart, subsistence farming being a very important vocabulary term, and I hope this has helped. We'll talk to you later.